The Every Point Sports Podcast featuring Greg and Jack starts right now.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Every Point Sports Podcast. I am Jack Stache. We've got Greg, the old gamer entertainer over here, right? It is March 23rd. We are getting mad in March Madness. How you feeling, Greg?
I'm great. I'm glad to be back. We had a last 3 weeks. We've had a 2 Sundays off. Jack and I had some stuff to do, but we are back. We are very excited. We got a lot to talk about. We got a bunch of different sports to talk about. We got March Madness to talk about. We got NFL news to talk about. And Jack with that shit-eating grin right now, he already knows baseball. He is so psyched for this fantasy baseball coming up. Oh, it's great because he's making me more excited for it. Like, I was like, all right, yeah, I'll join fantasy baseball. I'll learn a little bit more of the players just so we can talk more on the podcast to you guys and know more what we're talking about. But the energy that Jack is bringing to this is really making me psyched for it. So I can't wait.
I've got 236 players that I'm about to drop an article on with just the rank, just 1 to 236, because baseball goes quick. Like, once you're out of the top, you know, it's not like NFL fantasy. You need all these guys. Your lineups are bigger, all this other stuff. So, you know, I've gone all the way, and you know what? I was only going to do 150, and then I made a rule for myself. If there was 10 more players that nobody knew their names, I was like, well, whatever. And every time I would do that, there was 2 players on the list. I'm like, oh, there's a guy. So I've tagged currently 170. I've got to finish 236, and the article will be dropping with all of your player rankings. Super excited. I've got a top 5 that I want to discuss later on, but we'll get to NCAA first.
Absolutely. But listen, like Jack alluded to, we got madness going on. Madness. It's called March Madness. And it's one of the most exciting times of the year. It really is. We got basketball from morning to night for like 3 days straight. Some really good betting going on if you guys really like that, if you're in the March Madness, chances are you are throwing some bets down. Not too many upsets this year, but we got some good games this year. So touch a little bit on them now.
It's been all chalk, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, nothing. I took shots. Here's the shots I took. I'll just give you guys a heads up. I couldn't, in my heart of hearts, put Purdue on to the next round because they were playing a team called High Point. I know it's stupid, but if the newspaper read High Point scores most against Pittsburgh, I'd have to throw myself out the window. So I took High Point as an upset. They did not do it. You know what? They were in that game for a minute. Mm-hmm. Purdue did not get a cakewalk. The other team I took was Grand Canyon. And the reason why I took Grand Canyon is because they brought back their whole team from last year. And they also brought back Tyson Grant Foster, who went, as you know, or don't know, he was invited to the NBA Combine, did very well. They said, come back to school for one more year. He's got all the measurables, had a great game. They fell to Maryland. Those were my shots.
And no, and that's a great shot because a team like that reminds me of the older teams. Like VCU would bring back everybody. Gonzaga would bring back everybody. And it's names that like you don't normally hear, but you hear them consistently in the tournament. And it's because they bring back their guys every year. They're not a bunch of one and done guys or 2 years and done. Those guys are there for 3-4 years sometimes. So yeah, you're right. It's hard to go against that experience. It really is, because a team like that could very well upset most of the teams in the tournament.
Maryland's been good, but not great. Right. And I just thought that Bryce Drew was going to have that same team prepared. They were going to have the same hunger, and Maryland just got out and they didn't relinquish. But you got to take shots like that. The one shot I hit on Drake. I only had them going on to the next round, which was great because it's all they did. And then we're back to chalk again, ladies and gentlemen. Kind of chalk.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much the same thing. I didn't go too far out of the realm of anything. I have UConn going a little further than probably most people because that's my team. I did pick two brackets this year. I did one where I have Bama winning it all. Um, and if you guys want to see my bracket, I'll post it up for you. And then I have one that probably 90% of the people out there has Auburn winning it all. So, and it's funny when I posted it, I'm like, I really hate to do this, but I have to. To all my Bama fans, I am sorry.
I've got Florida winning it all. And I'm not
and you can't disagree with that. They have a great team too. They have some size over there. I'm just really, really hoping that my UConn puts a nail in your coffin on that one then.
Well, I'm just 2 games really impressed me from Florida. It was Tennessee was ranked number 1 for what, 7 weeks. Florida walks into Tennessee. Everybody knew Florida was a good team. They were going to have they were beating Tennessee at one point 37-12. 37-12. This is the number 1 ranked team in the country. This is the team in the country. They are crushing them on their home court. And I went, oh my God. And it didn't stop. They crushed Tennessee. Now, Tennessee came back to beat them, obviously. They went back and forth. Tennessee's a good basketball team, very good basketball team. And then the last game, it was actually against Alabama. I thought a lot more of Alabama. I went, okay, Alabama from last year, great coach, great program now, actually. And Florida was only up at halftime, I believe, by 4. And I was like, well, let's see what the second half has because these teams are going to be going at it. I don't know what the Florida coach said. Like, hey boys, let them have it. Let's go. Get them. You're way better than this. They beat them by 28.
Yeah.
I mean, so basically they beat them by 24.5. In one half of basketball, they beat them by 24 points. And I went, that's the best team in the country because, and the reason why they're the best team in the country is because Alabama is a great team. And to be able to pedal them like that in one half of basketball, that's what UConn was doing last year.
And they also had a I know they split it, but they had a nice win against Auburn too. That it was pretty much a blowout win. So they had one blowout win against Auburn, who's another team. Now they did lose to them. I think earlier in the season they lost to them, if I remember correctly. Auburn won the first one, but Florida won the second one, and they won by big too. Like it wasn't a close game by far.
Yeah, it's like watching a NASCAR race, right? And you're like, I hope that guy doesn't step on the gas because if he does, the field doesn't stand a chance. And Florida has, to me, proven that a couple times. I'm just like, man, when they want to get you, you're got, and that's it. Like I haven't, when I'm watching I watch sports like this. In case you guys are wondering, I just watch a game like this. If you ever get me here, you have my attention. And a couple times this year, I've turned my head and gone, wow, with Florida a couple times. And really, I wanted to with Auburn, and I didn't. I wanted to with Duke. They were fine a couple times, but I never had. And I thought I was going to have Alabama a little bit higher. And when Florida did to Alabama what they did to Auburn, what they did to Tennessee, I just went, it's a matter of time. That's how I feel. I took Duke in my other bracket because a statistic to me, my buddy who I had on here picking the games, Mick the Quick, he brought up this great statistic where Duke scores 1.7 points every possession. That's the most, that they're the greatest efficient basketball team in the country.
Okay.
And that will travel, right? That's somebody figured in that metric to what you need to be able to do to score. I understand defenses will stop it, but they haven't so far. So I thought that I thought that at least allowed Duke to maybe be in the conversation, but I still think they'd be the 3rd best SEC team. And maybe they don't.
Yeah, it's crazy how the SEC this year just kind of took over college basketball. We're so used to them taking over college football that we never really think about college basketball with them. Besides a few teams sprinkled in here or there every year, But usually that's an ACC, a Big East, or something like that tournament. Not too much the SEC. But the last couple of years, it seems like they're getting stronger and stronger. And this year, I mean, what they had four great teams in there.
Well, we gotta do a better job, and we always do a great job in pro sports, us, right? We always do a
Mhm.
great job in following the money. And I think we gotta start doing that in college. The NILs has nothing to do with the NILs. Look where the colleges are spending the money, right?
Mhm.
Because North Carolina, for what? A couple years now, North Carolina has been starting to come down. And with North Carolina starting to come down, you have them hiring college football talent,
Mhm.
and their college football talent has now, they brought in Bill Belichick.
Mhm.
Bringing in Bill Belichick was a signal that they understand that their college basketball program is not going to be as good. And if that's the truth, then why are we going to spend money in that direction?
Mhm.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So that's kind of how I feel about that. Um,
I
but it's
think.
okay. Um,
What was
but
that?
that's how I feel about that. I just
Oh,
kind of, you know, where are you going to have that money allocated? And
mhm.
North Carolina wants that money allocated in a certain area.
Yeah, and they're pushing towards football. They like you said, they hired Belichick. They hired a GM, Michael Lombardi. Those both are like, think about how much NFL experience those guys have in the front office. Just those two, it's pretty incredible. So they're going to run that. They're going to run North Carolina just like an NFL team. We'll see if that works. Um, College basketball is a little bit different. I don't think you really. They're so old school. The AD has all the control, coach, and then the players. So it's a little bit different with college basketball. We'll see if they adjust at any time. We'll see. Like you said, follow the money. Follow the money to college basketball. You see how North Carolina's doing. They're dynamic. Do we bring in a GM? Do we bring in a an older NBA coach that you know what do we do? Is that something that we can do? Can we follow that same blueprint?
If they were gonna do it, and I don't think they're going to, but if
Mhm.
they were going to do something like that, I think that you would bring in, maybe if he was younger, if this happened a little bit earlier, you would bring in like a Larry Brown,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's
Mhm.
maybe if he wasn't so crooked and got in trouble, maybe a Jim Boeheim.
Mhm.
I think that, Villanova could have brought in a Jay Wright to do some
Mhm.
of this stuff, but I don't think Jay Wright wants to participate in it. That's why he left. I mean, he was
Mhm.
one of the Duke could bring in a Krzyzewski if he wanted to do it. He doesn't really wanna do it, though.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
the
it
problem.
would be really interesting though to see as far as college basketball if they did run it the same way as they're starting to run college football. Though it would be really the dynamic would be shaken up quite a bit. I think.
You think so?
Oh yeah, I really do
Yeah.
because then you're going to have these GM coach battles that you see more in the NFL, more in the NBA. You don't see that in college basketball because that dynamic it doesn't exist. We might start seeing it in college football now that it's starting to be more prominent. I forget somebody just got hired as a GM for Cal. I forget who it was, but like you're starting to see this more and more in college football. So you're going to see heads butt. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, you will.
We see it. We see it in pro sports. So I'm wondering if that starts transitioning to the basketball. We're, do we see a lot of hot tempered coaches in college basketball?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of
I mean,
way more hot tempered coaches in college basketball than in football, if you can believe that.
I
Football, you
mean,
think of a like rah, like passionate, like very like hard nosed, drill sergeant type coach. Sometimes college basketball, you really don't think of that. You don't think of a coach that same way, you
yeah,
know.
I mean, you're right. You're right.
So
So,
it would just be interesting if they did go that route. I don't see it happening anytime soon. I think if one team is going to do it, I think you alluded to it, North Carolina, because like their program is dropping off slightly. What can they do to reinvigorate it?
you know, I it'd be interesting. And I don't think he has to do a lot, but I think he can open his pockets and I think he would look at Michael Jordan is notoriously he's notoriously he loves his team,
Mhm.
right? He's notoriously loyal. And to the point where, like, his family members aren't allowed to wear anything besides Nike.
Mhm.
Like, he's like, "Hey, what do you do? You're wearing something besides Nike," and they're like, "Yeah, I just picked these." He goes, "Why didn't you call me? I'll give you shoes. I'll give you Jordans to wear." Like, that's just
Mhm.
how he is. And if North Carolina starts to slide to the point of embarrassment, Michael Jordan's gonna take some of that Jordan brand money and put it into North Carolina for NIL. I got news, it's coming real
Mhm.
quick, and he's not going to allow his brand and his North Carolina Tar Heels. He'll do what Phil Knight did, or what Phil Knight wants with Oregon.
Mhm.
He'll start a Michael Jordan McDonald's tournament or whatever, or a
Mhm.
Jordan brand McDonald's tournament. He'll find the best players. He'll bring the NIL. Like, North Carolina slides, but they're not sliding forever when they got
Mhm.
Michael money possibly coming in to fulfill a need.
Mhm. And it's a historical franchise, historical college with when it comes to basketball. You know, so it's hard to believe that they wouldn't be bad for so long. You would think they would turn it around at some point. It's just about how will they? Will they go the route of what we were just talking about? Will they go the route where Jordan steps in? Um, I think that would be great if Jordan stepped in more. He becomes more of a face of North Carolina. I think kids would want to go there more if Jordan was around there more. But we all know Jordan has a lot on his plate. I mean, we all, besides he loves his golfing, he loves his gambling. He's not going to give that up to go see a couple North Carolina games.
No, but he would open his pockets.
Yeah, no, and I think it would benefit North Carolina more to have him as an ambassador than having him open up his pockets, though,
Maybe. Yeah. I mean,
because
he's
they
not
have
a
boosters. They have them there, but they don't have Michael Jordan's face. You know what I mean? Like Michael Jordan's face, Michael Jordan's name still resonates to 98% of the young kids out there, even to this day.
well, it's because they have no one else to look up to.
I mean, not everybody could be a La Flop. So
It's embarrassing.
it really
So
is embarrassing. Somebody that big, that good, flopping the way he flops is just ridiculous. He should be fined so much money for some of the shit that I see him do.
so I thought he was fun to watch up until the age of 32.
Hmm.
After 32, all LeBron James has done is ruin his name.
Hmm.
I mean, to me, I asked the other day, I asked, I bartend, and I asked 10 people around the bar, I go, who would you rather pay to go watch play? Would you rather go watch Kevin Durant play or Sean Kemp?
Hmm.
All of them said Sean Kemp
Hmm.
in his prime. And I said, "So how are we gonna put Kevin Durant in Hall of Fame?" No one wants to pay for his ticket compared to
Hmm.
someone that's not. Like, it's a real problem when people don't want to pay to watch you play.
Yeah,
How
but
oh, but your stats are so good.
I still
Well,
think Durant's better than Kemp. It was just Sean Kemp is more exciting to watch.
maybe he was, but I mean, let's be honest. Kemp went to a finals, right? And I know Durant went to a finals, but he couldn't do anything without, Curry and company. And, Kemp after the Seattle Supersonics, you could be like, well, he didn't really do anything. Well, they also had to deal with a long lockout,
Mhm.
and he was supposed to be a Cleveland Cavalier, and that team was going to be built and all this other stuff. And then the lockout comes. Like, Kemp had definite circumstances that were working against him. I'm just like, how are we going to put people in the Hall of Fame where people wouldn't pay tickets to go see them?
Yeah, because that's two different things. It's the excitement of the player. It's like I get what you're saying, and if you just think about it quickly, it does make sense. But then when you really start breaking it down, it's really unfair. Just because somebody doesn't want to watch you doesn't mean that you weren't a great player. I mean, we all know Kevin Durant is a great player. His stats speak for itself. His champions speak for itself.
Every time he had an opportunity to go with a team, that was, yeah, I'd rather watch Shannon Brown or a good blood. Yeah, no, not Shannon Brown. But Kevin Durant, every time he's had an opportunity to go out on his own without that Golden State team, has done nothing. By the way, he doesn't hustle down the court, which is
Well, when
why
he
he got
was
an
with
argument
OKC, they when that young team, when they had that young core there, they did good stuff then.
when he was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then he left, branched off, went to Golden State, and then tried to replicate that because he had the recipe.
Yes.
And for this whole stint with Phoenix is gonna hurt him. It
Oh,
it's really
absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
it's really, really gonna hurt him
You
because
know, when are
they're not
these
even
players
relevant.
gonna realize, um, when you go to these teams like this, like, they don't win for a reason. Like, why are you going there? You know?
They're they're not
Like,
even relevant.
why? Exactly. You're going it's like, we always joke about the wide receivers that go to Tennessee. Oh, where wide receivers go to die. But it's true. You know
Well,
what I mean? Like when you see history start repeating itself as a player, don't you look at it and be like, you know what? I see what's happening over there in Phoenix the last 10 years, and the people that's gone there, they really don't win. Why do I don't want to go there?
I think a lot
The
of these players
Nets,
make
and I don't want to cut you off real quick, but the Nets thing I got that. Like you bring in Kyrie butting up. You know, you're trying to build something there. I get that. You're trying to bring back a storied franchise, a Nets franchise. But I'm talking about franchises like the Phoenix Suns and stuff. You know the type of franchises I'm talking about. For franchises that the owners don't even care about.
the thing is, I think I don't know if the players watch enough about that stuff. I think they're in a player's bubble.
Mm-hmm.
They hang out with their buddies or, they have lives outside of basketball, clearly. They talk about it all the time. And I think they let their agents handle a lot of that. And, it's the agent's job to make as much money for themselves.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's also the agent's job to get the best deal for the player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if those are both of our jobs, forgive me for not putting you in the best situation. That's not my job. And I think a lot of that happens.
I kind of have to agree with you on that. And that's where it's up to the player to speak up and say, listen, you need to put me to a maybe not a contender, but somebody that's close to being a contender, and the money too. Let's try to make this work.
Yeah, and that's why Jimmy Butler seems like a jerk, but he's not. He's like, "I'll leave Miami,
No.
not for garbage.
Yeah.
Put me at
Oh,
least
I
somewhere."
listen, I never thought he was a jerk. Pay the guy what he's worth.
Yeah. I'll take, like, he's got more splints from wood on his elbows from being on the ground trying to get a basketball than half the league.
No, and you when you have somebody that plays with that much passion and that much energy, you want to keep them in the building because that's
He's
infectious. That people draw off of that type of energy.
he's a missing piece. He can make
Mhm.
things work. He's like, "Look at they were asking him the other night about passing the ball, and he's like, "Look at, man." He goes, they were like, "You passed the ball a lot to Draymond Green tonight." He goes, "Draymond Green was open." He goes, "I just appreciate, I think he took like 12 threes or something."
Mhm.
And he's like, "Look at, if you're open for him, you got to take him." And he goes, if he took 12 and missed 12, he was still open for 12 and there wasn't another pass to be made, so you got to shoot them. If you make 2 out of 12, he goes, which he did much better than tonight, but if he makes 2 out of 12, well then all the more better because now he
Mhm.
can move the ball. He goes, "I'm gonna pass it to anybody who's open. That's just how I am."
And I'll tell you what, in years past when Curry would go down, it'd be that's a loss. Not so much now with Draymond and Jimmy on the court. They just they play two different styles of basketball now. They could play that 3-point, shove it down your throat when Steph is in there, or they could just beat you up when Steph's not in there. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
They played some physical basketball. They really did.
Yeah, it's take your lunch money. It's punch you in the
Yeah,
mouth, punch you in the gut, and
being a bully. That's what they were doing.
Jimmy Butler's like, "Well, maybe I'm not the best athlete, but you're not leaving here the best athlete either."
Nope.
So let me talk about my favorite game of the day yesterday in NCAA
Okay.
basketball. My favorite game. You happen to be wearing both teams' colors. I don't know how you did that, but you know. But my favorite game of the day yesterday was the fact that Arkansas beat St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
It was Patino versus Calipari, and the media tried to write a nice story because they both went to Kentucky and obviously the connections. And Patino kind of shut it down. He's basically said, they try to make us out like we're these friends, like that we talk. We really don't talk. We're really not close.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I respect him. He's had a good career, but I don't talk to John. John really doesn't talk to me. And he kind of tamped that down. But I think it's sweet for John Calipari to get the win because of what Kentucky did to him last year. And
Mm-hmm.
this is unaired information. ESPN would never put this information out there, but I searched long and hard, and there was a beat reporter in Kentucky. He's going to remain nameless, but he reported it. And what Kentucky basketball wanted John Calipari to do last year is absolutely embarrassing for them and the state of Kentucky. What they wanted, what the boosters wanted at Kentucky, was to take John Calipari's freshmen and have them politically stump for them. And I don't care if people end up in my front door after I say this, because that's what they did. They wanted them to politically stump for whichever party they wanted. I don't know which one it is, but they wanted those freshmen to go to car lots and shake hands and all these other things. And Calipari said, absolutely not. He goes, look,
Mm-hmm.
at the best these kids have taken is maybe an American history class. Come on, guys, they're athletes. We know what athletes take in high school. Let them get here. Let them get comfortable with the program. And maybe a year or two after, if they're still here, then we could talk about something like this. And the boosters and donors said, John, we're not asking. We're telling you. We'll take away the private jet. And he goes, well, then you're going to have to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
John Calipari, after that conversation, called up one of his booster donor friends. This is how deep this stuff goes, guys, at Arkansas. And he said, hey, that job that you guys offered me a couple years ago, still available? And they said, well, John, we can't pay you nearly what Kentucky's paying you. And he goes, no, I'll take less. And the guy goes, what's the number? And he gave him the number. And they go, okay, we'll call ESPN in the morning. We'll report the breaking news that we've hired John Calipari. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone and their mother thought it was because John lost to a 14 last year and the pressure was coming down from the top and his job was at it. None of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely none of it's true. It's because John Calipari took a stand once again and tried to make sure that his kids were protected, for which he promised their parents when he
Mm-hmm.
recruited them. So congratulations, John Calipari, because when you do the right thing, maybe you have to go somewhere sometimes. But at the end of the day, you survive and advance.
Oh, absolutely. And something like that carries with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. A reputation like that carries with you. And what parent wouldn't want their kids to have him as a coach after hearing that story?
Well, hopefully people do hear it here because it happened. And
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully people, think twice about Kentucky and the franchise for which they are. Because I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think it's right. It's insincere, it's embarrassing, and I don't think it should be done. I'm not saying that they're the only school that does it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sitting here saying that, but I am saying that at the end of the day, people just assumed that John Calipari left Kentucky or they pushed him out because he wasn't winning games. If you think this is about college basketball, like at
Mm-hmm.
this level, you're crazy.
Yeah.
John Calipari left to protect the kids for which he recruited.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great story. Great story. I didn't hear that. Yeah, I'm glad that you told that to us. It brings a different light to him. Makes you
Yeah.
respect him a lot more. Like, I've always liked him. I always thought he was a solid coach. I always thought he was good. Every time his team steps on the court, they're prepared. They always have a chance to win. But that right there, little stuff like that just makes you respect somebody so much more.
Well, people just think that because he was the one and done coach,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just think that he's just recruiting these kids and then toss them into the NBA and he's notorious for that. No. In fact, another quick story, and then we can move on about John Calipari, is he knew allegations were coming down to Massachusetts. He knew
Mm-hmm.
he recruited a little sideways. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
everyone does it. The Boeheims have done it. The Krzyzewskis, they've all done it. But he was wow, Massachusetts is so good. How are they getting all this talent? And there was a big question coming in. And Marcus Camby was a pretty high up draft pick,
Mm-hmm.
but he wanted to win a title with Calipari. He promised them a title. He goes, "We're going to win a title." And he said, they had a meeting with Marcus's mother, and he already told Marcus's mother that he was going to tell Marcus it's time to go. And, he sat down. He's like, "Coach," he goes, "I don't want to go. I'm not ready." He goes, "Marcus, I'm not going to be your coach next year
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to be at Massachusetts. They're coming with the heavy hands. We pretty much know that we might be suspended here as far as recruiting. I may have done things and bought things, nothing insane, like lunches and stuff, and they're going to come after me, but they're not going to allow you into the tournament." He
Mm-hmm.
goes, "I love you. With all due respect, I think it's time to go. I
Mm-hmm.
have already told your mother you're going to be in the NBA next year. She'll have a beautiful house because you're a great kid." But he goes, "Our time here is up." And Marcus was crying, and he goes, "I'm not going to allow you to sit here and take all this. I'll
Mm-hmm.
take some of it, but," he goes, "I'll take it from afar because I'll be in a different league." John's a smart dude, but he gets
Yeah.
all those guys out of there that helped him.
Mm-hmm. And you have to respect that. You really do.
Well, I do. And people at times they don't, "Oh, John Calipari." You guys have no idea. Rick
Mm-hmm.
Pitino's a wolf.
And it's one of those things. Somebody was going to get those one and done kids anyways.
Yeah.
So why don't you bring them in, make the best that you can? I mean, these one and done guys. I mean, they're the top athletes coming in. Somebody's going to take them. So why not it be you? Let's give them the best situation to win something. Their only year in college basketball. Let's try to instill the best values or the best work ethic that we can give them in that 1 year, and move on.
Yeah, and so that's obviously these coaches aren't squeaky clean and all this other stuff, but I just think that when Cal could have stayed at Kentucky and relinquished all the power he had, he kept the power and said, "No,
Mm-hmm.
someone else that you hire will be doing this." And isn't it interesting that they hired a pope? I'm just
Yeah.
saying, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that they hired where'd that coach come out of, by the way? Utah?
Mm-hmm.
Hired a pope out of Mormon country? Oh, he's a walking contradiction. Of course, he'll do whatever it takes to. Yeah, we understand. We understand. What was your favorite game yesterday?
I did like my UConn.
Okay,
I don't know if they play. Did they play yesterday?
I believe
But
they
as far
did.
as my round one games that I liked the UConn game. I liked it. Well, one, because it's my team. I like my team to do well. And two, they showed me a little something. I know they didn't show you much, but they showed me a little something, and I'm hoping we go a little bit further than I initially thought. Besides that, I really like the. Let me pull it up here real quick. Just had it.
No, you're good.
What war was that?
I like UConn. I just they fight hard. Unfortunately, they're not gonna have enough.
Yeah, probably the game of the day though for me was the Michigan game.
That
They
was
were
a good
down
game.
by 10 points at halftime. They had a 10-point deficit. They came back to win what was it? 91-79. So it was a big second half win for them against A&M, who was ranked 4.
Yeah.
And Michigan is 5. So that was a nice matchup there. Anytime Michigan is good. I grew up with the Fab Five. They're not my favorite team or anything, but it's just like college football. When Michigan is good, when Penn State is good, when those teams are good, those storied franchises, it just makes the sport better. So when Michigan is involved in the tournament and doing well, it just makes the sport better.
Yeah, I agree.
Not having them in a tournament is like not having a Duke or not having a North Carolina. Like those schools always seem to be in it. And there was a time where Michigan wasn't in it, but being being on probation and stuff like that had some stuff to do with it. But ultimately they built the program back up. They're back in it, so it's nice to see it.
Now Sunday we could get Indiana back in. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, that would be great. I just don't see it. What's going on with that? It's like they don't care.
It's not they don't care. It's that Indiana is one of like 3 schools in the nation. I talked to an Indiana radio host. He was a radio host for the school, and apparently Indiana has um, athletic department issues.
Mhm.
So and they have to report all of their hours worked to the NCAA. It was the whole Bob Knight falling apart, and
Mhm.
they're under like this. They're under this like terrible umbrella,
Mhm.
and they have to. Oh, how many hours the teams played? How many hours this? And it's just nobody knows about it. Again, it's very to the school, but they just don't have the amount in the football program. What they have done, football can get away with a
Mhm.
little bit. What they've done is they've hired like a coach as the teacher, and so he'll teach sports, around the classroom or whatever. He's really teaching the football team plays,
Mhm.
and there that's how the football program has looked good over the years. Like Indiana's gone, well, if you're not going to let us be good at basketball, let us be good at football, and they have. And that's why the football program has had glimmers of light, but the basketball program is still buried underneath this terrible, microscope. Because what I asked him was, man, we've had a lot of good coaches come through Indiana after Bob Knight. I don't want to hear Bob Knight's the end all be all. He's a great coach. We've had a lot of good coaches come through there. Why can't they get these kids, their recruits, anywhere? And he goes, it has nothing to do with them, actually. They can't get practice time. They can't get this. They're constantly, it's like you working at a factory and you logging your bathroom breaks. That's how bad it is.
Mhm.
I
Wow.
mean, people, Lowe's home improvement center does that. In case you
Mhm.
guys are wondering, I worked for their DC. They want you to log bathroom breaks and how long it took you to walk from this department to the other department, all that stuff. And as a worker, it doesn't feel great, and as a coach, it feels even worse. So
Mhm.
that's Indiana troubles.
I'll tell you what, though, Indiana, that coach that they brought in, I forget what forget what his name is, but he has turned that program around in 1 year. At one point in the season, they were talking about him being a top 10 team in the NCAA. We all
They're
seen
getting
how that panned out the last 2 games of the season, but up till then, they were an undefeated team. They were a really, really good team.
yeah,
So,
they're getting there. They really are.
mhm.
So
So we just need to get their basketball program up and running again.
yeah, that's all. I mean, someday.
Because, like I said, Indiana is one of those other schools that it's only better. The sport is only better when they're involved.
Well, I mean, it's the center of the United States, really,
Hmm
right? Indiana is right in the
I mean,
heartland.
we all grew up watching Hoosiers. We all grew up, watching Bobby Knight flip it out on the court. Like they're a historic franchise.
His greatest story was on. I was telling somebody the other day. His greatest story was on David Letterman, and David Letterman goes, Bob, I gotta ask you. Everybody's been asking you, what's the deal with the chair?
Hmm
He goes, you had to have known that you can't just throw. I mean, you've been a coach for a pretty long time, right? Up until that point, right? Like 15 years. Yeah, David, I've been a coach for 15 years. Well, you had to know that you can't throw a chair across the court.
hmm
Did you ever do that before? And he's like, no. He's like, in fact, he goes, I never did that ever before. He goes, but it was a different kind of circumstance. And
hmm
Dave goes, well, then walk me through it. He goes, I was sitting there and their guy was about to go to the free throw line. And, he started dribbling the basketball. And I was trying to get my guy, put into the game. And I could just hear this little old lady going, I have nowhere to sit. I just there's nowhere to sit over here, and I really wanna sit down and watch the game. I'm a big fan of Indiana basketball. I would stay if I just had somewhere to sit, and I just couldn't stand her hearing this over and over and over, and finally, I just looked at my player, I go, "Hold on a second," and I grabbed the chair, and I just threw it so she would have somewhere to sit down and enjoy Indiana basketball. David Letterman is just
He was just
David
trying to
Letterman
be a gentleman. That's all he was trying to do.
David Letterman goes, "Is that the story we're telling nowadays?" And Bobby Knight goes, "My right hand up. She just needed something to sit down on, Dave." I thought it
That's
was
great. That's great.
That was really funny. And that, that embodied his charisma and his personality. That was
Oh,
bottom
absolutely.
line.
Yeah.
That was just really who he was. But all right, so I guess we'll move on, and we've got more tournaments today, right? We've got
Yes.
if we
Today
get
we
up-
got the big game today. We got Florida and UConn today. Ooh.
I keep my eyes closed, Greg. That Florida team is for real.
I know they are. But for me,
This is going to look like the beginning of Rocky 3, I promise you. Where Rocky still thinks he has it, and Clubber's coming, and he's just
Listen, I know. I'm a realist. I understand we're another year or two out from really contending for another one. We need that one guy that could take the ball. We have a bunch of role players there at UConn right now. So we get that one guy that we could lean on. We'll be back.
Here's a player I want you to watch today for Florida. I know Florida has a lot of good players. Elijah Martin. That team moves when that kid moves. That kid calls the huddle. He's the one. He's Draymond Green. He is absolutely in teams. He can break their spirits. He's the one going pass it, move it. That dude is the heart and soul of Florida. And there are other great players in the nation. He knows when they need a kick, and he's the separator for me. I'm not saying he's the best talent in the country, but he knows when his team needs it.
We got UConn is going on right now. That started at 12:10. But another game we got versus St. Mary, Arizona and Oregon. 4-5. That should be a pretty good matchup there. That's the late game. That's the last game of the day.
Pac-12 has been weak.
Yeah, but when you get a close matchup, a 4 or 5, a 3 versus an 8 or something like that, they're close enough together where it should be a good game.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be a 10-12 matchup. It probably won't be, but if you get 10-12 and it's a good game, it's a good game. I mean, you didn't get the greatest skilled boxers back in the day, but remember that Mickey Ward versus Arturo Gatti? They weren't the most skilled, but they were going to stand there and slug at each other and get up off the canvas and knock the other guy down. You're like, hey, you know what? I don't care what they're ranked. This is cool. This is
exactly. Sometimes you don't need a defensive fighter like Mayweather, just ducking everything that's thrown at him. Sometimes you just want to see two guys just hit each other and just keep hitting each other and see who falls first.
Yeah, and those were wars, and by the way, Mayweather fought that year, and not at one time did he win fight of the year.
Ooh.
No, it was Gotti and Ward because people loved that. There's a lot of ways out there to be loved, and that's one of them.
And Mayweather, let's face it, none of his fights are great.
No,
they're just not. No, he's a great boxer. I'm not taking that away from him, but he's a defensive boxer. And not just me, but most people like offense.
If he ever wanted to slug it out. Really, I mean, if he really ever wanted to have a slugfest, there's two fighters he would lose against. Shane Mosley buckled him. Shane Mosley buckled him, and then all of a sudden he went into the shell, right? The Philadelphia, the shell, for the rest of the fight. And in the seventh round? Here's what's interesting: left-handed Zab Judah. Zab Judah knocked him down.
Okay,
and you're like, well, would he have had the talent to knock him down again? Yeah, Zab Judah's Floyd Mayweather's cousin.
Okay.
Yeah, and nobody knew it. And, they're like second cousins, but like they have a relation. There is athleticism in the Judah family. And he snapped him with a left and but he didn't just get knocked down. He got knocked and he took the 7 count.
And I know we're going to get some.
And that was that.
I know we're going to get some boxing enthusiasts, some boxing, historians on here that says, fighting isn't like boxing is more than just hitting. It's defense, getting around the ring, movement, all that. Listen, I get it. We're talking about fights of the year. We don't vote for fights of the year for somebody that's ducking and dodging each hit that comes around. We're voting for guys like Tyson that just, one hit and the guy's down on the ground, or like the fight that you just said, where they're just sitting there pounding each other in the middle of the ring. Saying who is the best man? Who is the toughest man?
old gamer GK entertainment is what we're talking about. We want the old entertainment.
Yes. None of this new age stuff.
That's a great spot to plug you there. All right, we're going pro. You want to go pro? Because I know you know a lot about NBA, and I don't really watch that much until they want to make it.
Basically, nothing has changed in the NBA. Our top teams are still our top teams. There's a lot of movement in the mid tier where the playoffs are starting in the 4 to 6 area. Golden State is really pushing their way up. They're at number 6 right now. 3 games behind Memphis, I believe it is. If it would end now, they would play Houston, which they have a good record this year against Houston. But the thing about that is they haven't won a game against the other 3 teams. I forget who they were there. I need to bring that up. But anyways, they're 0 whatever it is. They haven't beat a top 5 team besides the Rockets yet this year. So that's very alarming. Very alarming. But in their defense, they're a different team with Jimmy Butler. So that's the difference there. Another team making a lot of moves, and I know a lot of people don't like them. LeBron James, but is the Lakers. I mean, they're playing some great basketball right now. And when you have LeBron, you have what's his name, Jokic. I mean, anything's possible with those 2 on the court. Even though I hate LeBron, anything's possible with those 2 on the court. So, but your 2 stories of the year is the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those 2 teams are playing lights out. They're battling back and forth for the best record in the NBA, and they're not being talked about as much as the Lakers, as much as the Warriors. Didn't we have this discussion a couple weeks ago with the whole what's his name with the big beard?
James Harden.
No. The commentator. They called him out.
Oh, Kendrick Perkins.
Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I mean, a lot has happened since then with that, but he's right. They are right. I forget who said it.
Charles Barkley.
Oh, Barkley. That's it. Yeah, Barkley is right. We need to talk more about Oklahoma City Thunder. We need to talk more about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Those 2 are really good teams right now. When I looked at what was it, Cleveland lost 12 games last time I looked.
But we spend all this time talking about teams in big markets. Well, then just get rid of all the small market teams because we're not going to talk about them even when they're good. It's a great point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And when Perkins gets fired next year because Barkley knows that he's going to take his seat, he called him a clown ahead of time because he knows whose job he's going to get.
Yes.
If you're going to go on here and go, what the Lakers are very, and this, that, and the other thing, and they're starting to do a little bit too much of it in football now too. You talked about, do you know how good Patrick Mahomes is? Should we start comparing him to Tom Brady? Patrick Mahomes was the 17th best quarterback in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Can we stop? Trevor Lawrence, we started pushing his name. Can we stop? Trevor Lawrence, it was nice, the beginning. It's sad now.
You know who was top 8 in every quarterback category?
Baker Mayfield.
Oh, maybe him, but Brock Purdy. Every quarterback category, if you look, Brock Purdy, the lowest he was number 8.
Yeah.
And that's what the unhealthy team. That's what his number 1 wide receiver going down. That's what Debo being a shell of himself. That's what Juwan Jennings is what he had. No McCaffrey. That's what I want to see from a quarterback.
I think he's had a good year. I think if I would compare, obviously not the true injury history, but I don't think that Brock Purdy is much different than what Mike McDaniels has in Miami and Tua. I don't think it's much different. I don't think they're world beaters. I do think when they get injured, it's going to be bad. It's going to be injured, right? Because Brock Purdy's he doesn't have a football body, really. He's a football player.
But he's built a little bit more than Tua. But no, you're right. They're both very slight quarterbacks. They have a very slight build to them.
He's not a starting pitcher, but he's a good relief pitcher. And I understand that we want to pay him money. If I were Brock Purdy, I would want money. Clearly, I want the contract, right? But I would want assurances from the front office that they're going to spend money on my offensive line.
Well,
If I
since
take
we're
over,
on the subject,
I'll take
we'll
less.
veer over to the NFL since we're
All right,
talking.
we'll go right on the NFL.
The whole thing right now, from what I know, and everybody knows from behind me, you could see I'm a Niners fan, so I'm pretty much I'm plugged into what's going on there every day. What's going on with the Brock Purdy contract is out of his camp, he wants Dak Prescott money. He is not signing for less than Dak Prescott money. Plain and simple. So what do you do if you're the Niners? Do you sign him now? These are options. Do you sign him now? Do you pay him the $5 million this year? See what you get with him, and then if he has a great year this year, and then you're going to be paying him more than the $60 million that Dak is making. So that's a crapshoot right now. Or, and this has come out this week, a couple of trade scenarios that people are coming out with. Do you trade him? Do you trade him for 2 first-round picks? Do you trade him for 3 first-round picks? There's rumors for both. There's rumors that it's a pick swap and 2 first-round picks from the Giants.
Oh my God, New York gets fleeced again.
You know, these are rumors. These are just rumors. There's nothing concrete. There's no trusted source that came out with this. These are just rumors around the NFL. But if you're the Niners, do you go that route?
Yeah.
Now, but do you? Now you have a quarterback in building already that you can win with.
If Brock Purdy goes to the Giants without Kyle Shanahan, he'll look like Tommy DeVito.
I'm not convinced of that, though. I'm really not.
Well, wait
just
till
because of the way he's able to process the information on the field quicker than these other quarterbacks that you talk about. He might be physical limitations, yes, but Tom Brady had a lot of physical limitations too. A lot. What differentiated himself from other quarterbacks that had more athletic talent than him, more arm strength than him, was 1, his work ethic, and 2, how quick he was able to process the information.
Tom Brady turned his throw from a throw to a golf swing. He elongated it.
Yes, but it took him a while to do that.
Well, how could Brock Purdy get taller? He can't.
No, I'm not saying
6'4".
I'm talking as far as arm strength, pure physical arm strength only. He's not the shortest quarterback in the league. Like if Drew Brees could do it, and then fucking Brock Purdy could do it, because Brock Purdy is still 3 inches taller than Brees.
Well, he better be Drew. You're signing Drew Brees then. You're going to go to bat and say that you're signing Drew Brees.
But no, I'm trying the comparison. The comparisons I am making between Brock Purdy and Tom Brady is between the ears only. Between the ears. They both had physical limitations, but it was in between the ears of what differentiated him from every other quarterback in the league that had more talent than him. They had Drew Bledsoe on their roster. Drew Bledsoe had a cannon for an arm. He was known for, being a good quarterback. Brady was not.
He was also known as Parcells' draft pick, which Bill Belichick did not want.
Yeah.
He didn't want anybody from Parcells. In fact, he piecemealed out every single one of Parcells' players at the right time.
But my point is that he was an elite armed quarterback in the NFL. Bledsoe was. He was around. He was making a ton of money.
If you're going to come into my office as the coach, and you're going to compare Brock Purdy to Tom Brady, right? Just because of the draft pick range, right? And
no. I'm comparing it because of what a quarterback with limitations when he first came into the league actually ended up doing with his career.
Right. But again, that was everybody that got it wrong. My point being is that if you wanted to keep him and you wanted to pay him and you compared him to Drew Brees and what his career could be and his height and weight and all these other things, I can get on with that. If you just kind of kept doing the Tom Brady narrative because of where we drafted him, I would trade him in 2 seconds and ask you to leave my office because he's not even the same player. They don't look the same in the room. Drew Brees and Brock Purdy do. And if you're telling me I could get Drew Brees mileage out of this kid, I'm happy to pay him. Here you go. Here's all the money. I'm happy to pay him. I think you're right. But to compare him to a 6'4" kid, just because of where they were drafted, that's how I feel. And I think Kyle Shanahan has to be very careful here. Because as you told me before, the purse strings aren't very open, right?
Yes, correct. Yes, they drew back on all that right now.
And by the way, I think if Kyle Shanahan's got to be very careful as well, because we don't know if Brock Purdy works without Kyle. Kyle's basically tying himself to the kid, but the kid better be good enough to stay with Kyle. There's a real, and I'd have conversations with my dad too, because he tied himself to John Elway. We know what John was. I like Brock Purdy, but if you can get 3 first-round draft picks, take it. Because I think that I don't think he's great, but I really do think if you swap Purdy for DeVito, you can get mileage out of DeVito. He's not a great arm.
All right.
But
Well, Tom Brady is only 6'4", 225.
Yeah, 6'4".
All right. Brock Purdy 6'3", 220.
Must have grown. He entered the league at 6 foot.
Yeah, 6'1". I have it right here. 6'1",
No, I know.
220 pounds.
Yeah, 6'1". So
yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like he still has 4 inches on Brees.
Wasn't Brees 6 foot?
No, I thought Brees was 5'11".
5'11".
5'10", 5'11". I could be wrong now.
I think that, again, if you compare him to Brees and you can get Brees mileage out of him, there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you stand on the Brady hill because he was drafted.
No, he was 6 foot, but he was only 209 pounds. He was very slight too, so he looked a lot smaller than 6 foot.
Right, but again, if you put them in the same room, which guy looks like the same guy? Right, you're trying
Purdy has 20 pounds on him. That's a lot of weight. You're definitely gonna see a difference between the two.
Yeah, I mean it's pizza and a couple extra beers. I mean, but
my point is that Brock Purdy's game isn't based around a big arm. His game is based around what's between his ears, his anticipation. He's one of the best anticipation throwers in the league.
Yeah. Maybe, again, I think that, you could draft somebody, Jackson Dart, if you end up getting him and you could develop him. I don't think he's got a great arm. I thought it was really interesting. Every throw that they loved from Jackson Dart in the combine, he took a little extra. If you watch his feet, took a little extra step. So he wanted to step into it. He needed just a little extra step to get the torque out of his hip. And if you're paying attention to that, he will be sacked for that extra step. It's not, this perfect twinge and all this other. He doesn't have a killer arm.
No, but you can work on that stuff. You could work on your fast twitch. You could work on getting those hips rotated around. That's something that even when Alex Smith came in the league, he worked with the I forget what his name was, but he was he trained a lot of major league pitchers. And he really wanted to get his throwing motion. He had that elongated throwing motion. He wanted to get it shorter. So that's something that he could work on.
Yeah. It's almost like a twitch. It's so weird. He just kind of picks the foot up more and just takes a half a step and then he unloads. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to practice. You're gonna have to take the pads, and every time he takes that extra step, whack him in the hip and practice. Right? Not hurt him, but just so he knows there's people there, and you're gonna have to move off of that.
And he was actually my favorite quarterback coming into the draft up until 2 games left in the season. That last game that they needed, that Ole Miss needed to get into the playoffs, and he looked horrible. Throwing interceptions, getting sacked. I understand that defensive end, I forget who they played, but that defensive end was just wreaking havoc in the backfield. So I get that, but I wanted to see a little bit more poise from him, a little bit more down the field, even though he probably didn't have much time to throw. I get that. But I just didn't see what I thought I would have seen out of him because you know me, I was praising him throughout the year. I thought he looked really good. He was leading a lot of categories. But yeah, those last 2 games I seen him play, I was not thrilled with what I seen. So I have reservations now of him as opposed to before I didn't.
If I had the number 1 draft pick, it's really simple. I don't have to overthink things. Well, actually, I would. So if I had Tennessee, right? If I was Tennessee, I would take Travis Hunter because I like my quarterback. I think Will Levis could do all the quarterback things. I think we're in a team in transition, and if there's a quarterback that's gonna have to take some bullets, I'll have that guy take the bullets. But if I'm another team, I think the best quarterback in this draft is Shedeur Sanders, and it has nothing to do with his last name. But he reminds me a little bit of just his demeanor, and it's a cat out of a different sport. But Shedeur Sanders a little bit reminds me of Ken Griffey Jr., right? Like
Okay.
he's real smooth, right? He's like, look at, I'll talk to some teams, but I'm more worried about, I'm not competing against Cam Ward. Cam Ward's going to be another quarterback in the league. I'm competing against the league, right? So he's already got that in mind. He gets hit and releases the ball. He sits in the pocket. He could take the hits. Wears the hat backwards, kind of like King Griffey, right? This, I think I told somebody else, I heard this taxi driver gave this great story about Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if I told you this. I'll tell you guys.
No, I didn't hear anything about that. No.
So he was on some sports talk show and they invited him on, maybe Rich Eisen or something. And basically, this cab driver goes, I know that you guys think the kid's arrogant and, because he's got the last name Sanders and all this. He goes, he's actually not. He goes, he sat in my cab. He had to go from here to here. We had about a half hour together. And in that half hour, he asked me how my day was going. What else is on the agenda for the day, all this other stuff. I was telling him he had to pause me right in the middle of the conversation because he had to call Shiloh to make sure he was on time for where he was going. He goes,
Okay.
Shiloh is the quiet one. Shiloh is the late one. Shedeur is in charge of that kid. And Dion called him back in the middle of the conversation. He goes, yeah, Dad. Yeah. I called Shiloh. I made sure he's up. He's ready. He's moving. He goes, all right. He goes, and he could hear him on speaker. He goes, all right, because if that boy's late again, Shedeur is in charge.
Ooh.
Shedeur is in charge. And Dion makes sure, hey, where's your brother at? I need to see him. But Shiloh is a little outside, and he's very quiet, so you don't know it. Shedeur's sitting there going, brother, I got 10 things on my mind.
Yeah.
You want to be 11? I don't think you want to. I got 10 things I got to take care of today. I got to make sure that this cab driver knows that I'm a nice guy right off the bat. He goes, and he left me a $40 tip. So, right. And it was because he was doing business in that car. He was taking care of things in that car. And he goes, I don't do these talk shows. I don't really care about these talk shows, but I just felt so bad that everybody had this and that and the other thing to say about the kid. The kid didn't know me. He could have been an absolute jerk. I'm a nobody to him, right? I was taking him a half hour away where he needed to go. But he was so kind to me and endearing to me and asked me about my day and, made sure that his brother was getting taken care of. He goes, I'll tell you what, if you think that old man's messing around too, he's not. Dion is not messing around. He made sure Shedeur was on Shiloh, and Shiloh was like, yeah, I know Dad's been calling. He goes, well, if Dad's been calling you, call him. Whole time. So Shedeur reminds me, it's a little King Griffey Jr.-ish to me.
Okay.
King Griffey Sr. wasn't the greatest hitter. He was a good hitter. He played baseball, obviously. The kid had the swing. Dion maybe wanted to play quarterback, but his one son does have it. And I'll tell you what, if you watch some of his highlight throws, he takes bullets in the pocket and unloads the ball perfectly.
Yeah, he's fearless in the pocket. He really is.
I mean, he doesn't think there's a man out there that could really beat him down and hurt him. And, maybe that'll change. But
I'm sure, once he gets hit by these big NFL guys. But no, you're right. He has that fearless attitude when he's back there. Absolutely.
Well, he's one of those quarterbacks too that hasn't really stepped up competitive level, or that has stepped up competitive level, right? So he started at Jackson State, took those bullets, Then he went to Colorado. These are different men now. These are another level of competition, and they're beating you down. So that's 2 levels. Now he's headed to a 3rd level. Do I assume that he's going to fail? No, because he's already done this level up. He knows what to expect at this level. I like Shedeur Sanders. I would draft Shedeur Sanders and not even worry about the kid because he's doing the worrying the whole time anyway. Being in charge of your younger brother is a big thing. You got to make sure that this happens, that happens, because he gets in some trouble. He's expected to get in trouble, right? He's a clown. But
no, listen, you're Deion Sanders' kid. There's a certain amount of news that follows you around anyways, a little bit of stigma that follows you around anyways. And if you're able to handle that as a kid of an NFL all-time great, who has been very controversial as a coach, the way he's come in, turned programs around, signed everybody from the NILs, all this stuff, transfer portal, all this. You're able to handle that as a young kid. That speaks volumes for you as a person. Shows you how much pressure you can handle. He's handled a lot of pressure as Deion Sanders' kid, as Deion Sanders' most talented kid, I should say.
Well, yeah, and Shiloh is going to go in the 4th or 5th round probably, and I think the best situation he could fall into is maybe Pittsburgh. Right, having a Mike Tomlin falling back into the militant, it's kind of getting his dad anyway, stuff like that. That would work the best. And who knows if he does slide, and I'm not saying he's going to. If Shedeur Sanders slides past the Raiders, past the Jets, Pittsburgh will be on the take here. Yeah, Pittsburgh, both of the kids.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see him sliding that far, but you mentioned 2 teams that I wanted to talk about real quick also, so we could just pivot away from this Shiloh Sanders stuff. Is Jets rumored to Ty Warren at number 7 for Penn State's tight end. Rumors that they really love the kid. We all know he's not. He's the best tight end in the league. He's not quite what Bowers was last year, but he's still very talented. Still the top tight end in football coming out this year. Is he worth the number 7 pick, though? I would argue that Bowers was last year. You know how much I loved him. But is Warren top 10? Is he?
Yeah, well, I don't think this draft class is that strong. Let's
I agree. Totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. We have a good, solid, probably 10 prospects that can't miss. But after that, we're scratching our head. So yeah, absolutely, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and so what you're trying to do, look at you paid a running back to throw football in New York, right? So you paid Justin Fields, and I say running back because you paid him a running back contract. Yeah. You paid him Saquon Barkley's running back. That's no disrespect to Justin Fields. You took the deal for what you think you got, right? That's that. Mm-hmm. So, but we have to at least admit that it's a little interesting that he'll be throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson again. That's interesting. That's Ohio State to Ohio State. They both went to Ohio State at the same time. Garrett Wilson will be getting the ball from Justin Fields again. They chose Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, the Jets, over Aaron Rodgers. That's what they did. And they looked at the market and they went, geez, you guys both want to walk if Aaron stays. Well, we kind of want you here. Okay. And so, all right, let's just let Aaron walk because he's going to take time anyway. And we want you guys here. How's that sound? They both got together. This is what I think happened. And they said, yes, we're staying there. Okay, good. We got you guys. We'll get a good, strong coach. Defensive, we'll have the defense taken care of again. All right, so what other quarterbacks are out here? And they started marking things on a piece of paper. And, they said some nice things about Justin Fields. They said, yeah, we believe that he could read defenses. I don't. They believe that he can make all the throws. He can make some of the throws. Can't make all the throws. But I think at the end of the day, they went, he played with Garrett Wilson. And if we're going to sell tickets, that'll sell tickets. And we do believe that he has enough athletic talent to move around. That's true.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You cannot disclaim that at all. He's even Even though he didn't start, he was still one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL.
How do we make, like, if he was the quarterback for any of Tom Brady's Patriots teams, he would have no chance. No chance.
Mhm.
But let's make this offense dummy proof. One of his best guys at Ohio State, Brees Hall, we know what he is. Braylon Allen, we know what he is. If Justin doesn't like any of it, he can tuck it. We'll allow him to
Mhm.
use his stuff. We will make this offense easy. And that tight end, that Warren kid, he can beat middle linebackers off the line of scrimmage.
yeah. Mhm.
So it's easy for Justin to read it, right? Because
Mhm.
that's his problem. After it gets going, doesn't read it great. But
Yes.
if we make it easy for him to read, how can he make enough mistakes to kill us? By the way, we have $40 million. He's a nice kid. He's never in the news, right? He plays. He's always
And
available.
he's
to play.
young enough to where he can grow into the position.
He's always available to play. He'll never read a defense well.
Mhm.
He'll never throw. He's thrown passes in Chicago to where if DJ Moore didn't grab them like this, they were intercepted and run back.
Mhm.
Let's make it easy for him. But you're giving him a DJ Moore and Garrett Wilson.
Mhm.
You're giving him a guy who could snatch the ball. You're giving him a big body tight end. Maybe he is not Brock Bowers, but this
Mhm.
Warren kid beats middle linebackers. And I think the Jets are just trying to make it easy on the guy they didn't pay a lot.
But is it worth drafting at number 7 a offensive weapon that is going to be limited because of your quarterback?
Well, okay. So if the tight ends are a quarterback's best friend right nowadays, right? I actually think tight ends for a quarterback that doesn't read things well is very good for them. Right. So that doesn't limit them. If it was, let's say it was Rondell Moore, a 5'8" speedster, problem. Zay Flowers, problem, right? Because now I got to figure out where he's going. Problem. I think a big body tight end is good for a quarterback that doesn't read great. Maybe he reads good, but he doesn't read great. So I think that's great. And by the way, Buffalo drafted Dalton Kincaid with the number 9 pick, and Dalton Kincaid hasn't been this world beater tight end. He has helped Josh Allen in spots, but he hasn't been this world beater tight end. In fact, you could argue Knox has been just as good. So,
absolutely. But the difference between that is you already had Josh Allen, which is a good quarterback. You have Justin Fields, who isn't a good quarterback. So, yes, was it good for Buffalo to draft another offensive weapon for a good quarterback like Josh Allen? Yes. But as far as the other end, you have a mediocre quarterback. Is it worth the number 7 pick for him, or would you be better off getting maybe an offensive lineman or somebody on your defense that you need? You need another defensive lineman. You need another linebacker.
I'm never a fan, ever, in any circumstance. Well, especially in this one. I'm not a fan of drafting offensive linemen for a quarterback that wants to run.
Okay.
And he wants to, right? And because he's not spending real time back there. Why did I spend money on a left tackle when he's going to run outside of it or run inside of it and get moving anyway? Right. By the way, that left tackle can't predict where this guy's going to move. Your pocket passers that need a guy to block, right, or not to know when he gets beat. All these other things, right? For all the Will Levis needs a little bit of help up there. Jesus, does he need help? They let that guy get teed off on. And he doesn't have any time to get to any kind of passing. Mayfield got a line, he got better. But Justin Fields wants to get out there. He can almost be a player. Baltimore doesn't pay really for their offensive line because they go, Lamar will take care of it, or we'll scheme it.
No, they don't pay, but they always have good ones, though. They do.
Yeah, bring in some big bodies. Bring in some guys that can move their feet. I don't need to be paying a huge left tackle.
Well, they just did. Baltimore just did. They did pay their left tackle.
But it's been all these years, though, that Lamar's starting to pass the ball better.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. He's developed. Lamar is finally starting to develop the way I thought he was going to develop earlier in his career. When he played for Louisville, I was back behind the line talking to the cooks, Remember Anthony and them behind
Yeah,
the line
yeah,
after
yeah.
Rick Riddle, pounding the table for Lamar Jackson. I'm like, guys, you do not understand how great this guy is. Like, he is doing this in college. He is doing Michael Vick stuff in college, but he's bigger than Vick.
But as far as Justin Fields passing goes, it's this.
Oh.
It's just still it is. So I can't
Yes.
spend money on you until you force me to spend money on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give you the tools. Here are the tools. And I'm going to give you, I want you to throw, I'm giving you enough to look at. Aaron Rodgers is now the benchmark for this team. He threw 31 touchdowns for.
Mm-hmm.
You went to college with this boy. This guy went to Penn State. He's the top talent you could assume this year at the position. Big body, catches everything.
And he might, but not. He's not faster than any of the wide receivers, but they're saying that he might have the best hands coming out of college.
Yeah, he's a taller version of Mike Allstott. He's just really dumpy, but he'll figure it out.
And you can put him in the backfield because Penn State has. So you can use him as a utility guy too.
Yeah, he's a Kyle Juszczyk, if you want to say something like that.
You bring in the right type of offensive coordinator if you draft this guy. If you have Fields, Warren, Wilson, and Bryce Hall, like, if you can't come up with some really clever plays to score, there's something wrong with you as an offensive coordinator, because that's 4 really good talents. I understand Fields can't get the ball down the field accurately and this and that. He has limitations like you just pointed out. But you as an offensive coordinator should be able to work around those limitations with the other talent around you.
I think Justin Fields' ceiling, to me, it is, and it's not a knock. I mean, the guy went to a Super Bowl. His ceiling to me is Colin Kaepernick. He throws an absolute bullet, but when he needs you to catch he can't throw a pillow.
No.
In fact,
he can't do that. He can't do this.
They should have, you know what they should do? This would be a great idea. If they took pillows and they put rubber bands around them, almost made them look like footballs. No, for real. And made him throw them just so that he got the idea of how he wants the receivers to catch a pillow. It's not the dumbest idea, and I'm sure it hasn't been tried. Just have him throw a pillow, because you don't need all the stuff on it for them to catch the ball or catch the pillow the right way.
Listen, it goes back when you're training for dodgeball. If you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
I've heard that somewhere.
One other NFL news I want to touch on real quick. We were talking about them, and I didn't want to interrupt you as you were dropping some knowledge on us. Aaron Rodgers still out there. Pittsburgh still the only place, or I know there's rumors Vikings, but the Vikings aren't going to pay for him. Really, to me, the only spot for him to go still right now is Pittsburgh. You still agree with that, or?
Yeah, I actually think the deal's done.
Yeah.
I mean, so, he's probably sat down with Tom and they're like, all right, well, we have this draft process and we're going to be drafting and I'm not saying that we're going to bring in a guy, but we only have Mason Rudolph right now, right? And he knows their system. So, I think Tomlin's resound to the fact that they had a good meeting and Aaron likes the summer anyway. So, Aaron's the type of Mike Tomlin. This isn't the first time. Well, it's an aging quarterback. I don't know what you think Roethlisberger was.
No, absolutely.
Slugging beers and stuff in the postseason. And Tomlin see him in camp and going, Ben, you got to drop 30 pounds. Yeah, I gave you the leash. Now it's time. Now we're in camp. Now you got to drop 30 pounds.
Listen, I allowed you to go drink your beers, eat your hamburgers, get your BJs in the bathrooms. I allowed all that.
Right. But now you're in my facility. So now it's lights out.
Put on your big boy pants, put on your work shirt, and let's go to work.
And so people are like, oh, how are Tomlin and Rodgers going to get just like that? Just like that. He let Antonio Brown run amok. He let Le'Veon Bell put on his own rap music. Listen, man, I get it. You're different. Different people. I understand that they get different rules, but I still need the 40 push-ups. You can listen to your rap music. You could drink all your beers. I need 30 push-ups when you get in here, right? So, okay, well, you're sick over in the corner. That's going to be your problem because I still need the rest of the push-ups completed. Him and Rodgers will be fine. They really will.
Listen, Tomlin is an all-time great coach. And an all-time great coach, this day and age, you need to learn how to coach personalities. And he's one of the best at it. He let his players be them.
He's a little Pete Carroll.
But it's still about the team. He preaches the team. You could be yourself as long as it's not detrimental to the team.
Well, what I say about Mike Tomlin, and this is Mike Tomlin and Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is the Mike Tomlin of the South.
Mm-hmm.
They asked him in a press conference, they go, hey, Baker, that was a pretty good 30-yard juke and a touchdown. Like, what would you compare him to, like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? What do you think? He goes, I don't know, maybe Rocky, like he goes, maybe a try-hard kid that gets the hell beat out of him, but you can't beat enough hell out of him. I don't know. Look, it was a great run. Baker will tell you he's not Lamar or Josh. He goes, but I mean, he took a beat, and he goes, and that Baker, he will take. He just lets him do it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're similar in that ways. He lets Evans, like Mayfield was there for 20 minutes. This is a quick story. He was there for 20 minutes. He took all the wide receivers out to dive bars in Tampa. He is as advertised.
I've probably been to a few of them.
Yeah, he is as advertised. Don't you dare try to wrangle him because he's a wild kid from Texas. When it's time to practice, he will practice. Don't you dare tell him what to do on his off time. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Just real quick, I want to touch on, you mentioned something really quick that jogged a story in my head as far as about press conferences and coaches. My favorite press conference from a coach. It's not like I can't win with them. It's not that playoffs, it's none of them. It's college, Bobby Bowden talking about Janikowski and whether or not he's going to sit him for the ball game because he was late for a meeting. Bobby Bowden looks right at the camera. You want me to set my best player? A kicker. You want me to set my best player? No, that's not happening. Yeah. Favorite quote of all time, looks right at the reporter and said, no, I don't care that he was late for a meeting. He's our best player. He is playing.
Yeah. I mean, he kicked 60-yarders, hung over.
In his sleep. Hung over in his sleep, he was kicking them.
Sometimes they said they gave him a couple beers on the sideline just to spray him up.
I believe it. He was an animal. He really was.
They're like, this is 54 yards. He goes, yeah, man, I don't feel like doing it. They go, here, just drink a couple beers, would you please? He goes, oh, all right. Yeah, all right. That made me feel a lot better. Oh, it's crazy.
And for you young kids that are watching this, Bobby Bowden was the coach for Florida State. Janikowski was a kicker for Florida State back when they were good. So, there was Florida State was they were always in the news for something shady going on down there when Bowden was down there. The crab legs, late for meetings, people not showing up, some players showing up in brand new cars, they were always involved in something down there. But Bowden was always coming off with these great things at the press conferences. But that was the one still to this day that makes me chuckle.
Yeah, I you liked Bowden. I loved Spurrier. Spurrier's like, they're like, oh, you're in the SEC. How many times do you plan to run the ball game? He goes, 0. Write that. Print that. 0. And they're like, so how do you think you're going to win games? He goes, we're going to throw it.
We're going to throw it. We're going to run 5 receiver sets all the time.
So after his first win, and it was a big win, they're like, what did you think about today? He goes, he goes, it was pretty good. They go, pretty good. You won by 30. He goes, yeah, but I really wanted to throw the ball like 55 times. We'll only get to about 48. I promise you guys, we'll get to about 63 next week. He goes, we'll get that little measure. I think Craven Moorhead, dime drawer.
Yeah, I think every guy is craving Moorhead.
Craving Moorhead could be.
It's a joke.
Really? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's a joke. Craving Moorhead.
Oh, my God. I'm not drafting him.
That's why I said every guy. Funny stuff.
Talk.
Yeah. So I think that's about it today, right?
Oh, I want to talk fantasy baseball.
Oh, that's right. That's sorry.
You promised me.
You
promised me. All right. So
let's pivot to fantasy baseball then.
Oh,
here we go.
I got some sheets for you guys. All right. So 2024. I just want to. Here's my thoughts, and I don't necessarily advise doing this because I know what you guys are going to do. You guys are going to just go out there and blindly draft Ohtani. Just like in fantasy football drafts, you all blindly drafted Christian McCaffrey, and collectively, you were wrong. I told you would be. You were left in a puddle full of tears, and I don't
No,
care.
that's not fair. That's not fair. That
That's
is
what
not fair because if he was healthy and on the field, he would have been a top back in fantasy
but I
football.
told you he wasn't going to be healthy, and the reason why I told you he wasn't going to be healthy is because he played the longest and had over 120 more
No,
carries.
you said his carries and stuff. They were going to be lessened because of that. There was
And he was
nothing
gonna-
talked about health until the 4th game of the season.
Yeah.
Then that's when health came involved.
Here's another health update for you. Shohei Ohtani has put on a little bit of weight at the end of last year.
Ooh.
Little bit of health, right? And listen, I understand you got a fat contract, you got a different diet, all these other things. I'm not saying that he's going to get injured, but you people out there seem to think he's going to be pitching. Oh, he's going to come back from this injury that had his elbow, and they're going to have him pitching. Well, it's really interesting because all the Dodgers have done is sign new pitchers.
And I reported a month ago that he is not going to be pitching this year. It came out from the Dodgers that he wasn't.
But Jack, he said he's going to be pitching. Why would they hire more pitchers? Because he ain't going to be pitching, pal. They might put him in for 2 innings, right? They might try and bring him in some kind of relief role if they can during the game as a closer, maybe something like that. He's not going to be pitching. Say it with me, Dodgers Nation. Shohei Ohtani is not going to be pitching. All right, well, fine. We got to that. All right, get it, Jack. Fine. Well, his numbers from last year were good. Great, right? 54 home runs, 130 RBIs, 59 stolen bases, 197 hits, 134 runs.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's not good. That's great.
That's a great year. But so let's investigate this a little bit, though. Those 59 stolen bases, they weren't because he's fast. They were opportunistic. They were pitch count bases. And I'm not saying that he's not going to get the same amount of bases, but it was almost like that year, follow me real quick, where Leonard Fournette had 70 receptions out of the backfield. They were dinks and dunks and they needed to do it. He's not going to average 70. He's going to come back to 48.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not going to get 59 stolen bases is great. He was chasing 40 and he was going to get 40. Okay. But I think that comes back a little bit, probably closer to 45.
Okay. That's still good, though. That's still solid.
It is great. Okay, 197 hits, also great, right? But for my money, the growth player for this year, and you could be getting him in the not late rounds, but, 3rd, 4th, 5th pick, is Ellie De La Cruz.
Okay.
Ellie De La Cruz, 25 home runs, 76 RBIs, 67 stolen bases, and he's the fastest player in baseball. They were not opportunistic. He's long and could get bases. He had 160 hits with 105 runs. Jack, how are those numbers going to improve? Let me explain something to you. The Cincinnati Reds have just signed Terry Francona out of retirement. They've got a lot of young talent. And I believe that Cincinnati is good enough to win that division. So more runs, more hits. By the way, his home runs went up last year. I think De La Cruz is probably going to get around 35 to 38 home runs. Those RBI numbers are going to come over 100 because he's got more players on base because Francona is going to help them. If the stolen bases stays the same, the hits come up a little bit, maybe he gets to about 180 hits because he's hitting better, seeing the ball better. I think his numbers could really be honestly even. Maybe not the home runs with Ohtani, though. I think that Ohtani could have a little bit of pullback this year. And I think he could miss some games, not a lot of games, but I think he could miss some games in the middle of the season because the Dodgers are trying to hold him off for their late season playoff run because the Dodgers got a lot of players, fellas. And they wouldn't really fall off if they brought Ohtani out for, I don't know, 30 days in June before the July and August push. I'm very serious here. So the numbers come back for the long push.
Okay.
I like De La Cruz. I like Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt's numbers. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I have a question about 2 players after this one.
Okay. Bobby Witt Jr., 32 home runs. Great year last year. 109 RBIs. 31 stolen bases. And he's not a base stealer, but they were natural steals. He
Okay.
kind of Kansas City Royal. He would remind you of George Brett a little bit. Tough nose, hungry, all those things. 211 hits. He had more hits than Ohtani last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and he had 125 runs. Bobby Witt is the number one argument for people on message boards against taking Ohtani. They think that Witt might take the further leap forward. I like Witt. I do like De La Cruz, though, just equally, because I think
Witt had a great year last year. He was all over. Every time you turn on the TV, they were talking about him. So
I think De La Cruz could get the whip bump this year. What's your question, real quick?
I have two players that I'm very interested in, and they were big names about 2-3 years ago, and you haven't heard too much about them. I think one of them was because of injuries, but unfortunately, they play for the same team. We got Manny Machado and Tatis Jr.
Okay. That's a great question.
Those are two names that a couple years ago you heard them all the time. Every time you turn on the TV, you've seen a highlight from one of those two. But they seem to have dropped off. Where do you have them? Do you think they're going to have a bounce back this year? Were they gone because of injuries? I don't know too much about them, except that they were good a couple years ago.
This is a great question, by the way. And you're trying to you're splitting Padres, splitting fellas, right? All right, so I like Manny Machado, right? But I don't love his production with his contract. Okay, he's third base. That's primarily what he plays, and he's a good player. He puts up nice batting average numbers. I don't have all of his numbers in front of me, but Tatis last year started to come back off of his injuries midway through the year and really start to hit the ball. Okay, so if you're looking for a hitter, and I believe he plays outfield, right? You're looking for an outfield guy, I would take Tatis because, in my opinion, and actually in voters' opinions, Alec Baum and the Philadelphia Phillies had a better year than Manny Machado at third base. And they think that it was an outlier because when these rankings come out, you'll see Alec Baum down the rankings. But I believe that Alec Baum is starting to become the Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan and Bryce Harper.
Okay.
So if Bryce Harper's the lead dog on that team, Alec Baum is starting to become his running mate, if you will. By the way, Alec Baum throws the ball from third base to Bryce Harper on first. They've paired them up on the field, and Alec Baum, I think, is ready to make that next real step. So he's big dude, strong dude. I think he's as physically capable as Machado, and I could get him later in the draft. Tatis, I want probably in the second, third round-ish, depending on how your draft is. And Machado, if you lose him, there's other third basemen that you can get excited about. That's how I
now. One other question I have, not about any player, but just about as far as drafting in fantasy baseball. Period. Now, football, everybody has a different strategy. Some people like taking a running back early. Some people with PPRs like taking a wide receiver early. Depending on maybe if you're down lower, you like to take the number one tight end. Blah blah blah. What's your strategy, or what do you think is the best strategy for drafting in fantasy baseball? Is it getting a good hitter? Is it getting a good all-around player with your first pick? Is it getting a starting pitcher with your first pick?
A great question. Another great question. All right, so pitchers, no. I wouldn't take a pitcher in the first round.
Okay.
I want a bat. Right. And not only so I mentioned these guys, right? I mentioned if De La Cruz's back gets a little bit better, he's taken 60 bags. So if you can find a guy, so this is a great example, right? So I gave you the De La Cruz numbers, right? Let me give you the Juan Soto numbers.
Okay.
So Juan Soto, great, right? 41 home runs, 109 RBIs. Wow. Oh my God. That's really good numbers, right? 7 stolen bases. Now, maybe he helps you out with doubles and stuff like that by getting extra bags that way. He had 166 hits and 128 runs. All great numbers across the bag. But at the end of the day, I would rather get Aaron Judge because Aaron Judge gave me 58 home runs, 144, way more RBIs. Same team, by the way. Still got you more RBIs. got you more stolen bags, 10. It ain't a lot more, but it's more.
Not a lot, but it's more.
It's more. 180 hits, same team, and 122 runs. Right. So we love Juan Soto going to the Mets, right? But I want a guy that gets me hits, gets on base to take bags. Those are right where I want to be. I want hits and I want bags. They don't necessarily have to be home runs. Home runs are great. But if you could find a guy that hits 25 home runs and takes 25 bags, that's kind of where you want to be in the middle.
That's where you want to be.
Like that. Yes. Yeah, that's where you want to be.
All right. All right. I think we answered some good fantasy baseball questions because that's something that we never really got into on this channel, on this podcast. So I'm glad we are. I'm glad we're getting some more insight on it.
I'm pumped. Now, you don't want to run out of pitchers as well. Like, I just want to, you want to have, it's almost like a tight end, right? That's how I look at pitchers. There's a lot of pitchers. Obviously, you want to fill your positions and your rosters and stuff like that. You don't want to have, you don't want your starting pitcher to be the third guy on that team. Oh, that's brutal. Maybe you can get lucky, and Strider got hurt last year, so their ace became Chris Sale, and you took Chris Sale in the 8th round.
Right.
Now, I told people last year to take Chris Sale because I thought that you were getting him in the 14th round, first of all. He was coming off an injury, but what was interesting is his whip and his ERA went down as the year went on. And I thought that was showing strength in his arm, and that was the year before, and I was right. Stuff like that you could start taking advantage of. Same like fantasy football. Just got to kind of see it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a name that still hurts me every time I hear it, by the way. Just saying. I'm a White Sox fan for you guys that don't know. So, I was so happy when we drafted him. When I heard that we drafted him, I'm like, finally, we're getting a top pitching prospect coming in. He was great for us for a couple years, really seemed like he was going to be a fixture for us until he went batshit crazy. Didn't like a retro jerseys that we were wearing and decided to cut him up.
I don't love him this year either. Because they have this guy, Schwellenbach, I believe his name is, and they're going to focus on him being the number 2 now that Fried is gone and a Yankee. And I think Sale still thinks he's the guy, but obviously it's Strider's team when Strider comes back, and Sale's really carried Atlanta last year. He's going to want to start thinking about a contract. And once that crow starts barking at the back of his head.
Yeah. You want to hope that it's not though. Cause if you can get Strider and him, that's a nice punch for your start pitching.
It's hard to convince a guy that he's a number 3 once again, which is what they originally signed him for when he was a number 1 last year, crushing people, and he's going to want money, and he deserves a little bit. But we know Chris Sale can go off the end.
Yes, absolutely. But the good thing about baseball is they don't have a hard cap; they have a soft cap. So therefore, they could sign him to more money if they really wanted to. They wanted to appease him a little bit. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want to throw a lot of money at him. Like you said, what's he, is he going to be your second pitcher? Is he going to be your third? What's he going to be?
He pitched last year like a 1. I don't know how many 1 years he has left. Probably not many, but I mean, if you gave him, I don't know, if you could do something nice, like you give him 2 years, $30 million, that would be, that'd be fair for what he's already done for your friend. You're right. You didn't break the bank. But you're giving them like DeGrom money a little bit towards the end.
And Atlanta is isn't a small market franchise, so they have the money that they could do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think they might if he barks hard enough, and will get there. I think.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a good team. They really do. I forget who was it that got hurt last year, but when he comes back, their number 1 player,
Strider. Acuna Jr. too.
What was that?
You got Acuna Jr. got hurt last year. That's their hitter.
Acuna Jr. is who I'm talking about. Once he comes back healthy, I mean, they have a good roster.
Yeah, and Spencer Strider is the number 1 pitcher in baseball.
Yes,
I mean, I know you guys love Paul Skeens, but let's be honest here. Strider's a monster. And when he comes back, it's going to be lights out for teams that got to play Atlanta. So, yeah, those are teams I like. Those are players that I want to talk about. Those are your top 5 players, by the way. You got De La Cruz, Ohtani, Witt Jr., Soto, and Judge. I just think that people are going to draft Ohtani blindly. That's Ohtani number 1. Okay, maybe it's
a name. It's a name. It's like Mahomes. Like you draft him blindly. Some people do. We've been in leagues where he goes in the first round. You and I would have never even touch a quarterback in the first round.
We are in a league.
You know?
But I just, if you're looking for a little bit of movement, right? I think there are a couple Mets out there that have the opportunity to do better than Soto. I don't want to give up all their names, but Ramirez is another one in Cleveland. He kind of finds a way to get on base no matter what, and people are going to go, "Oh, he doesn't look like a great player. He's not this big physical specimen, but he kind of looks like Tony Gwynn. He gets on base, and he's a little bit in better shape than Tony, so he'll get you some extra bags and stuff." These are things you need to look at when you're building a team, right? Because as fantasy players, we're building a squad.
That's right. Yes, we are our own GM.
And so I'm not going to tell you guys that you should draft this guy here or that guy there, because you're going to get to a point where you drafted 5 guys. You're like, okay, I need a shortstop, and I'm not saying that you're getting there, but you're going to need a shortstop, or maybe your back's up against the wall in the 4th round. All that stuff I told you about Manny Machado, and you went, Jack, Manny Machado's right there.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take Machado so that I don't have to worry about it anymore because I got 2 pitchers at great value. Okay. Well, who the hell am I? I'm not the I'm not the official czar of fantasy baseball or fantasy football. Build your team the way you see fit. Make sure that you're well informed on the players for which you're surrounding yourself with. And by the way, if, for instance, there's a question mark between this guy at second base or this guy at second base, right? If you have a toss-up, right? Like, let's say Willie Castro from Minnesota plays all the time, or for a player that you really like who plays second base, right? Bryson Stott, I think, plays second base for Philly. If you're going to be watching a lot of Phillies games, take your guy. You're going to watch them a lot. Yeah, have fun with it.
Yes,
that's my last message for the day, right?
Yeah, that's something that I think that I'm glad you brought up, because a lot of people don't think that far ahead. They're always looking at this, looking at that. Look at what teams you're going to be watching the most. Like, you want to root for the players that's on your team. So, like, I'm not saying take some scrub or mid-tier over a top guy, but I'm just saying, like you said, if it's that close, pick the guy that you're going to be watching. Like, it just gives you that extra thing to root for. It makes the game that much more interesting for you.
You do it all the time. You're like, I'm not going to let one of my 49ers players be, left for naught. And worst comes to worst, I know in my heart that I drafted a 49ers guy, and that if I have to drop somebody, I'll have to drop him to move on to a better player because I do want to win. But you did the right thing on draft day. It's going to be guys you're watching. Just be honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
And draft guys that you have fun watching, because you're just trying to enjoy the summer and watch a little bit of baseball.
That's right. That's right. I think that's it for this week, right? I think we touched base on a little bit of everything. Our draft is in 4 days, correct?
Yeah, it's so I had to switch the time on it. It's not a big deal. It's later. It's later.
What time?
8:30.
Oh, that's my bedtime.
Well, the whole league doesn't get out of work until 4.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, unfortunately I have to get up at 4 a.m. every day. So
we'll just do a couple of rounds.
Yeah, listen, it's one day. I'll just I'll suck it up and just do it. I mean,
it's only.
I will be live streaming it for those guys that want to stop in, say hi. Any questions? I'll be live streaming the draft. And also, if you guys want to stick around today, I will be playing some Call of Duty. So if you guys want to stick around for that, I'll be playing that today too. So just want to give you guys a heads up on those 2 things. Stop over, watch the channel. It goes a long ways.
All right, guys, like and subscribe. Fantasy Farm Sports. We're at 128. Let's get to 130. That'd be really cool. I'd appreciate you guys got to 130, right?
Yes.
130 is 136.
All right, guys. As always, stay excellent to each other.